Something you may have noticed if you're getting into swords more actively is that the functional swords are not stainless steel. They're carbon steel. And one of the issues about carbon steel, it rusts, which means sword maintenance is important. And we want to show you how to maintain your swords. And I'm joined by Tyrant.
Hello guys. So we're going to be talking a little bit about sword maintenance, because once you start using your sword, or just even, not even using it, once you just start handling it, you will start to get rust. It accumulates. Now, I personally like to clean swords before and after use. I feel like that's a good way. As soon as you take it out of your sheath or your saya, whatever it is, giving it a wipe is a good idea.
Yeah, it's just good practice to, whenever you put it back in the sheath, make sure it's cleaned, even oil it if you can.
There's also one extra thing I should mention is you should probably wipe your sword after you do some cutting as well. Something that a lot of people who may not know this is once you do a cut on, let's say, like a tatami or a piece of wood, not that you should be cutting wood that often, you actually will start to stain your blade almost instantly. So if you're not getting that off really quickly, your blade will get stained from it. The acids in those things.
Yeah, especially like if you've ever cut fruit, it only takes a couple of minutes for it actually to etch the blade.
But in terms of sword maintenance, it's very simple. I would start off, if you've just done a cut, using a paper towel. Something like a paper towel, just to clean whatever debris it is. Now, when you wipe your swords, you should actually be very careful. You don't want to apply too much pressure, because you can cut yourself. We've had... I'm not going to name a name, but we've had an individual cut themselves cleaning swords.
But before we continue, I need to let you know of the awesome sponsor of this video, Bellwright. What is Bellwright, you are asking? It's actually a really awesome looking single-player co-op open-world medieval survival strategy sim. And seriously, it looks brilliant, where you as the player are charged with picking up the pieces of your past and bringing justice to a broken nation, for the rumblings of insurgents begins to grow louder across the countryside as bells toll for vengeance. Built in Unreal Engine 5, this gorgeous, sprawling open world is where you'll work your way up from a tiny settlement to the acting leader of a full-fledged rebellion. It has resource and town management, so as you free people from their oppressive influences of the crown, you get to build, manage, and upgrade your outposts and towns with recruits, and you get to manage their resources. It also has a happiness system, skill-based directional combat, character progression, roleplay and story, as well as co-op support. Seriously, if there was ever a game that was made to catch my interest, this is it. I can't wait to give it a try myself, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it as well.
You just want to apply a little bit of pressure and take whatever debris it is, or whatever liquid is on your blade off.
We also have a good demonstration of how easily a sword can rust. We do not handle this sword often, okay? But from mere contact with the pommel, have a look at what's been happening on the pommel.
Well, this is something that a lot of people don't actually remember. There's actually other parts of your sword that are made of steel. For the most part, the whole thing is, and they can all rust. One of the worst spots you'll get is the pommel, and actually underneath here where your hand will make contact with your crossguard.
We had some pretty heavy rust grow on our cold steel mess-up. On the crossguard specifically.
Yeah. So when you get rust like this, usually it's just a surface rust, because you're not going to allow rust to accumulate over like 6 months.
Like only a couple of days I got rust built up on my pauldron and we had to do this.
You're going to want to use something like this. Now this is a foam sanding pad. This is personally not what I would use, but this is most commonly available at like hardware stores. Yes. I would personally use Scotch-Brite pads. They're a little bit more softer on the steel. This is a little bit more aggressive. But
are they the green ones that
you can get green ones. I usually go for the red or the grey ones, because they have different grits and stuff. With something like this, you're just going to start rubbing like this. It's basically you're sanding off the rust, but it's a very light sanding pad.
Yeah, and so it shouldn't scratch the metal.
Yes, you got to make sure that you get one of the finer grits and not something, 120
If it is a high grit, you will scratch.
Yeah, so you want a nice high grit, maybe something like a 600 to 1,000. In between that range will be good for your swords.
Yeah. Sorry, low grit will scratch. I think I said high.
Now, there's one little caveat when it comes to maintenance on a sword. For example, on your Lockwood. Now, your Lockwood is an expensive sword, a high-end version, high-end sword. This you don't want to use too much sandpaper on, but you kind of do. If something like this rusts, it's a bit of a problem, because this sword originally has bluing. Now, bluing is used in things like guns, and that can actually keep away the oxidation for a long time, but not forever. So what would happen with something like this, with a sword that has bluing on something like the crossguard or pommel, is you'd actually sand back that surface rust and then have to re-blue it. It's a little bit more complicated, because bluing is a bit dangerous, like it has acids in it and stuff. But that is one of those things where you should mention as well, because some high-end swords may have bluing on them.
Yeah, and this one does. And you would actually be stripping away the bluing if you go too hard on the rust.
Yeah.
This one has had rust a bit.
Like this color here that you see is the bluing. It's not rust or anything like that. There are some spots where there's surface rust, but that's actually the finish. Once you've done that, using something like WD-40. Now, there are oils you can use, but let's be real here. WD-40 is available everywhere. It's cheap. And it works.
It works really well. I mean, I have used things like mineral oil. That was fine. It evaporated a bit too easily. People have used things like, even like, is it Vaseline? But you can also use certain motor greases.
Anything that is just going to keep the air away is...
And moisture.
WD-40 is perfectly fine. Now, you can apply it straight to the cloth, or you can... I just apply it straight to the blade. Just be a man about it.
Yeah.
Now, when you actually get the blade like this, you don't want to leave it like this. You want to grab something like a microfiber cloth, something you would wash your car with, right? And apply a little bit of pressure. This is like with the paper. You don't want to squeeze tight. You
actually want to leave a certain amount of moisture on the blade, because that's the oil. That's what's going to protect it from moisture.
Yes.
And it's also good to have some of those oils seep into the scabbard a bit.
Yeah.
Because if you can actually lubricate the inside of the scabbard with some of these, moisture preventing oils, especially if there's like a wool lining, that can actually end up getting to the point where it applies an oil coating every time you put it back in the scabbard, so long as you don't put it in dirty. You don't want to put it in with any other crap on the blade.
Yes. Usually sayers or scabbards or stuff like that, they're just going to be wood. So when you put these blades in oiled, after like a week, 2 weeks, the wood actually draws the oil away from the blade. You don't really have to re-oil it. It should be fine until the next time you open it.
Yeah,
but for the most part, you can re-oil it. It's no big deal.
Especially if you have a nice seal. Like this sword here has a really tight seal on the scabbard. I have to pull it out, right? And so as a result, that's locking everything in there. It's a really good... This is why this is a high-end sword, by the way, because this will prevent moisture seeping into the scabbard very well. And
then the last thing that I would do in terms of maintenance is actually for the leather handles. These leather handles, especially on European swords, it's actually, like, for example...
Look, it's already fraying. And
it is a thin leather that will degrade over time, and your best bet of prolonging the life of it is just grabbing a little bit of leather conditioner. You can pick it up at, like, supermarkets. For things like shoes and stuff, it works for all leather. Just put a little bit on it and it'll keep it nice. It'll give it a nice sheen and it'll protect it a little bit.
And that's basically it. You do those steps, you will preserve your carbon steel functional swords for many, many years.
So to go over everything, we're going to wipe the blade first with a paper towel, remove any debris, anything we don't want. If we need to fix up any of the blade, if there's a bit of surface rust, grab a very high grit sanding pad. Something foam like this is better than sandpaper.
Softer.
And then apply some oil to it. Make sure you get your pommels and your cross guards. Then you're able to sheath it again. And then to finish it off, just give it a little bit of leather treatment. I
will add, if you were wiping off some of that rust, right? You want to apply the oil, then wipe it off, because you're going to wipe away some of that rust, off bit, and then reapply oil to do a final coat.
Yeah, and that's basically, that's the basics of sword maintenance. Then after that, once you get into a little bit more intermediate stuff, you get into sharpening and fixing chips.
So there you go, guys. Thanks for joining us here on the Shadlands for another video that cuts to the chase and is straight to the point. Hope to see you on the next one. This was a dedicated video filmed exclusively to the Shadlands YouTube channel. If you'd like to see more informative and entertaining sword-related content that cuts to the chase and is straight to the point, please subscribe so you don't miss out on the exclusive content, as well as the supercuts and clips from the longer-form Shadiversity sword-related content. If you'd like to see the longer-form deep-dive sword-related content, be sure to check out Shadiversity. Thanks for watching.